Everyone, welcome back to the channel. And look, the idea was to try and go through Genesis, Exodus, and all of those type of things. But I want to just quickly skip ahead to this parable. It's the parable of the workers in the vineyard. It's Matthew 21 to 16. And what I love about this whole parable, something that I've just become so obsessed with, is something to do with justice and the legal system, which is a little bit weird because when you hear about this parable in church, there's the main message which most pastors will talk about. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the parable. We're then going to talk about what most pastors discuss around it. But then I want to focus on justice. I think this parable has got such an interesting thing to say about justice. And if you've studied law, legal systems, you'll see that there is actually like a very big or very awesome piece of information contained in this text. So without further ado, let's just read through it and then discuss what we want to chat about. So it says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into the vineyard. About 9 in the morning, he went out and saw the others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. And he told them, 'You also go and work in my vineyard, and I'll pay you whatever is right.' So they went. He went out again about noon, and about 3 in the afternoon did the same thing. About 5 in the afternoon, he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, 'Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing?' And they said, 'Because no one has hired us,' they answered. And he said, 'You know what? You also go work in the vineyard.' Now this is the interesting part. When the evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, 'Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first.' Now the workers who were hired about 5 in the afternoon came, and each received a denarius." Now, what we remember is that that's what he kind of agreed with the first people. And this is the one I love over here. It says, "So when those who were hired first, they expected to receive more, but each one of them also received a denarius. And when they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. These were hired last, these who were hired last worked only 1 hour, they said, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of work and the heat of the day." But he answered one of them, "I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for the denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I give you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last." Now, one thing I see a lot of pastors talk about in this whole verse is, the equality, which it's the big one, talking about how, God, whether you become saved at the end of your life or whether you're saved in the beginning of your life, we're all going to kind of be equal with God. And I know theologians, they sometimes wrestle with this because, what about storing up treasures in heaven? And it does open a little bit of a can of worms with regards to the whole theology thing. But the main idea that pastors try to get forward is that it's never too late to join Christianity. It's not like, oh, you haven't joined since you were in Sunday school as a little kid. That means you're never going to get anywhere. It's kind of saying, you know what, there's still hope. If no matter how late you are in life, you can come to Christianity and you're going to be equal. But where I get excited with this verse, or I think there's this other message that a lot of pastors don't necessarily get into, and I think the reason why I've been getting into it is because my dad's a lawyer, and I've been very fascinated by the legal system and what is justice. Justice, what is ethics, what is morality. And that's why when I see words like unfair and I have the right, I get very, very excited. Because when we look at the story, the first time you look at the story and you kind of agree with the workers, the guys who were working right in the beginning, okay, the guys who were working right at the beginning of the day, they're seeing someone, who only works right at the end of the day, getting paid a denarius, and they're expecting more. They're like, wow, that person just worked for 1 hour. I've been working for 10 hours, I'm probably gonna get, like 10 coins or something huge. And of course, they then come and they only get their one denarius and they begin to grumble, okay? And we look at this and we kind of sympathize with them. We understand what they're seeing. It seems unfair, okay? It seems unfair until you look at it from a legal perspective, okay? And the verse basically actually goes straight there. It says, didn't you agree to work for a denarius? And this is the thing, is right at the beginning of the verse, he says, he agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into the vineyard. Now, if they were unhappy, if they didn't think that was a good deal, they could have said, no, I don't want to receive a denarius. That's not enough. I'm rather going to go to the marketplace and do fishing or something else. But the thing is, when the contract is formed, they agree on the price. And from a legal perspective, you've got this meeting of the minds. They've got, this is the payment, this is the job, the remuneration is set in stone. And when you look at a legal contract, when two people enter into it, that contract doesn't change or doesn't have any, you don't have any right to get more if that same person goes and enters into a similar contract with somebody else. If you go to somebody and you say, I will give you 10 Rand for an apple, and then you go, or $10 for an apple, and then you go to somebody else and you say, I will give you $1,000 for an apple, okay? If the person's already agreed to give you that apple for $10, and then you make that payment, and then he sees you doing $1,000 for an apple, he has no legal recourse to come and say, hey, I want another $990. Because that contract that he's been made with the second person has got nothing to do with the original contract. And we see this here. He says, I love this. It says, don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? And I mean, that is brilliant, because it's the final nail in the coffin of the argument, saying that, listen here, you're getting all upset and everything, but this is my money. I can do what I want to do with it. And it gets interesting. I mean, we could also unpack this part, or are you envious because I am generous? And I mean, that's like another whole can of worms that you can just open there. Are you envious because I am generous? I mean, do we envy people who are generous? And I mean, that's looking from a psychological point of view. But what I also really enjoy about this whole verse is it's speaking to the personal relationship that we have with Jesus. It's, Christianity, it is a personal religion. It's the worker and the owner of the vineyard, okay? It's the deal that they have come to make, and it's between him and the workers, between God and us, God and you. That's the contract. It doesn't matter. It's not a collective or an organized religion. I know it kind of went through a little bit of that in its history, and it got involved in politics, and people like to bring that up as a reason why they don't want to believe. But coming back to the scriptures, we see that Christianity is designed to be a personal relationship. It's not a collective. It's not like, okay, guys, you're only going to get paid a denarius if the vineyard produces fruit. It doesn't depend on your collective effort. It depends on your own individualistic effort. And that's what I kind of like. But the thing that really got me with this verse was how it kind of attempts to look at justice, and how one thing that seemed unfair, okay, and this is a big thing now, like even in the South African courts, where we try and deal with fairness and justice. Something that seemed unfair, and this is why they grumbled. He grumbled because he thought it was unfair. We then see, when you actually think about it, when you look at the contract, that you're not being unfair. Because what? Didn't you agree to work for the denarius? And I love that. I love that whole legal system. I mean, Socrates, he has this whole dialogue on, what is justice? What is the just thing to do? Justice and fairness and ethics and morality, they all kind of, are associated with each other. And we're seeing that this verse is tackling it not directly, but it's kind of like it's it's in the shadow of the story. Like I say, I think the big chunk of it is made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of work in the heat of the day. I think the whole equality message, the whole thing that Christianity is for everyone, it's something that the Quakers very much gravitated towards, that whole concept of equality, no one superior to anybody else. And that's great. And that is, like I say, one of the big messages of this verse. But, and this is the great thing about these parables, is they have these shadow themes where you can really get into justice. And like I say, there's another whole one that we can unpack here with, are you being envious because I'm generous? Anyway, I think let's maybe leave it off there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And Joe, let me know, like I say, I haven't been giving this channel as much attention as I want to. Let me know if you want me to go through more parables, if you want me to continue going through Genesis, like how we started. And you can see I just got completely bogged down. Let me know what you want, and yeah, let's build this channel together. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you soon. Cheers.